everybody, and I mean everybody, dislikes JD Vance. And in a time when the country feels so divided, it almost seems like the one thing uniting people is how unpopular he is. Wherever he goes, whether it's a city, a town, or anywhere else, he's met with boos, protests, and pushback. That's exactly what we just saw in Minneapolis, and it may be the clearest example yet of how shallow JD Vance really is, how little this administration cares about the issues they claim to stand for, and why he faces so much backlash. We're going to break it all down. But first, if you enjoy our work, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Now, JD Vance's trip to Minneapolis came in the aftermath of a devastating school shooting, an issue he's shown no real interest in addressing. Instead of working towards solutions that protect kids, he resorts to tweeting, which is exactly what Senator Chris Murphy called him out for.
Here's what the Vice President, JD Vance, tweeted this morning. It's shocking to me that so many left-wing politicians attack the idea of prayer in response to a tragedy. Literally no one thinks prayer is a substitute for action. First of all, nobody's attacking prayer. Prayer is important. But this idea that you are going to take action to protect our kids, nobody is believing it. In fact, we've watched this administration take action this year, and every single one of your actions has been to make it more likely that kids are going to get shot to death in schools or on the streets. Let's talk about the actions that you have taken over the last 8 months. The Trump administration from day one has undergone a relentless campaign to make our kids less safe in our communities. The first thing you did was shut down the entire Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Then you sent out orders to the enforcement agencies to essentially make it easier for criminals to be able to take guns out of bricks and mortar gun stores and put them on the black market. You installed into the most important enforcement agencies that oversee our gun laws pawns of the gun lobby. You ended funding for programs that go to schools to wrap services around kids that are in danger of engaging in violent behavior. You shut down funding for community anti-gun violence programs that were working in communities all across this nation. You have engaged in a purposeful, relentless campaign to undermine the nation's gun laws, to make it harder for schools and communities to prevent gun violence. You've done every single thing the gun industry has asked you. You've taken action, but every single action you have taken has gotten more and more kids killed in this country. So yeah, prayer's important, but it is never a substitute for action. And it is just both offensive and laughable that the Vice President of the United States thinks that he can convince people in this country that this administration is going to do anything other than implement every single thing that the gun lobby and the gun industry is asking for.
It's never surprising how quickly MAGA figures play the victim. Senator Chris Murphy has been a consistent advocate for stronger gun safety laws, and yet JD Vance tried to spin the narrative by claiming that Christians are the ones under attack, that people of faith are the ones most at risk. Meanwhile, what Murphy and so many others across the country are demanding is more than just thoughts and prayers after children's lives have been lost. For Vance to frame himself as the victim in that moment is the perfect example of what MAGA politics has become, always twisting words, always making themselves the target, and never standing for the values they claim to believe in. And as if to underscore that point, just look at the Epstein files, where even Congressman Thomas Massey recently called out JD Vance.
And it was just 9 months ago that the entire administration was for releasing these files. The problem is they've done a 180-degree turn on this. You know, you mentioned that Republicans are split. Only in Congress, in the swamp, are Republicans split on this. Back home, all of my Republicans are united. They want us to keep our promise and release these files.
It wasn't too long ago that JD Vance was on Theo Vaughn's podcast saying, "We have to release the Epstein list. We have to release the Epstein list." But now that it's become politically inconvenient for JD Vance, as has been the case through his entire political career, he abandons that issue. JD Vance has changed his entire personality to suit his political ambition, which is why it is no wonder that people can't stand him. And we saw that in Minneapolis right here. JD Vance heckled by protesters at Minneapolis shooting site. JD Vance was met with dozens of protesters Wednesday calling for gun reforms during his visit to the site of last week's school shooting in Minneapolis. The vice president and his wife, Usha, visited the Catholic Church 1 week after a shooter opened fire in the pews, killing 2 children and injuring 21 others. As the Vances arrived at the church, some of the students' family members and local residents greeted them with signs calling for bans on assault weapons. The Associated Press reported one video captured protesters yelling, "Protect our kids and do better," while Vance and Usha walked into the church. Another video shows a group of people lining the street, waving signs and flipping the bird as the Vance's motorcade races by. "Listen to the Pope and the pandemic of arms," one person's sign urged, referring to comments Pope Leo made Sunday. Other signs questioned how Vance could reconcile his pro-life stance with his reluctance to back tighter gun restrictions. "This is a political problem. Like something has to be done," said Cassie Sharp, whose 8-year-old son considered one of the victims, Fletcher Merkel, 8, his best friend. "My son lost his best friend in the world because these politicians won't do anything." However, Vance sidestepped a question on Democratic Governor Tim Walz's intention to call a special session of the legislature to vote on a new gun control measure, including an assault weapons ban. "I saw that news and I talked a little bit about that with the families today." He said, "Look, I'm not going to tell Minnesota lawmakers or the governor exactly how they should respond to this tragedy. Calls for gun safety reforms have intensified following the shooting, which was carried out by 23-year-old whose name I'm not going to say, who is believed to have used a rifle, a shotgun and handgun that was legally purchased. It's no surprise that JD Vance avoids talking about real issues or actual policy that could improve people's lives. He runs from meaningful debates because, at the end of the day, he doesn't seem to know what he truly stands for. Vance is so politically hollow that he waits for direction, usually from Donald Trump or whoever he thinks can help him climb the ladder toward becoming the Republican nominee. That ambition is the only thing he appears to care about, and he's willing to throw anyone under the bus to get there, including the very Epstein survivors he once claimed to support. But those survivors are speaking out, calling out not just Trump and Vance, but this entire administration and a Republican Party that refuses to deliver justice or make the Epstein files public. Last night, Jen Psaki spoke with one of those survivors in a powerful interview, and it's worth paying close attention to.
Who could not be there today is, of course, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of Epstein's accusers who was pivotal to the federal criminal charges that were finally brought against him in 2019. Virginia Giuffre tragically died by suicide earlier this year. But today she was represented at the press conference by her brother and sister-in-law who spoke on her behalf, and many of the survivors took a moment to honor her memory. At the end of today's event, the lawyers representing Epstein survivors made sure everyone there understood how important Virginia's legacy continues to be today.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre is an American hero. Yeah. She is somebody without whom we would not be able to have this voice. She was the one who had courage to name names, speak out against people, and she was standing up against everybody at one time with an enormous amount of pressure.
And most of these women are here because of Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
Earlier today, I spoke with Virginia Roberts Giuffre's brother and sister-in-law about today's event, the calls to release the Epstein files, and what happens next. I'm joined now by Virginia Giuffre's brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, Amanda Roberts. I want to thank both of you so much for being here, for just being tireless advocates for not only the memory of your sister, but also so many other survivors. I know you have both been a tremendous source of strength. Let me just start. I've been glued watching every detail of the last 36 hours, and there have been some incredible moments over the course of the last 2 days. I mean, Brad Edwards called your sister an American hero. Survivors said today and yesterday that they were there because of your sister. I'm going to get emotional talking about this. I'm sorry. But how does that feel? I have siblings. I have not been through anything like you've been through. How has that felt to hear your sister called out as such a source of inspiration over the last 2 days?
We are so proud of what she was able to accomplish over her lifetime. You know, I think many people can relate to that. You know, she's a normal person. You know, she's somebody that you could go down the street and have a drink with. But the truth is that she fought for so many brave survivors that came forward today. And something that really struck me today was, you know, in talking to some of the survivors was, you know, she was like 15 of them, you know, in one. She would just come out and point fingers and was not scared to go up against these rich and powerful men. And so, you know, and I would say today is a show of force. You know, I am so proud of these women for coming forward, for these survivors coming forward. And she should be here today. She would be here today if she could. But we are very honored and very proud of her.
I don't know how any Republican can listen to this testimony and simply decide they don't care about an issue they've long treated as nothing more than a political pawn. The truth is, too many of them are spineless, shallow, and willing to fall in line behind Donald Trump no matter what. That's exactly why we have to keep calling it out every single day. And if you want to support that, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you've made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.